Welcome back. Well, good amount of momentum in the Indian markets as well as across the globe, and that's all because of the US elections that are underway. Mr. Donald Trump is likely to speak with his supporters very soon. But before that, let me take it across to Sumita to get the latest on the tally. Hi, Sumita.
Hi, Anisha. So it looks like Donald Trump is all set to make a comeback on the back of his Make America Great Again. Of course, this has been one of the poll planks that Donald Trump has spoken about in the past few months leading up to this big day. So as of now, the numbers really look in favor of Donald Trump, 246 versus Kamala Harris's 194. In fact, 51.2% of the votes have gone to Donald Trump, meanwhile 47.2% to Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, New York Times has upped Donald Trump's chances of a win in this election by 93%. Important update here as well coming in, especially as far as those 7 battleground states are concerned. 2 battleground states, that is North Carolina and Georgia, have already been captured by Donald Trump, by Republicans, and looks like Pennsylvania is also leaning Trump way, leaning the Trump way. Now, why is the state of Pennsylvania crucial? It's crucial because it has 19 electoral votes. That process really decides who gets to be the president of the United States, even though popular vote may go in for a particular candidate, but it is the electoral votes. So amongst all of these swing states, Pennsylvania has 19 electoral votes, and it is, as of now, the trends are seeming to go the Trump away. Remember, in the lead up to the election, most of the ad dollars and most of these campaign rallies have largely been concentrated around Pennsylvania. So if Pennsylvania is captured by Donald Trump, then it is pretty much clear that he's going to win. Remember, earlier in the day, it was Kamala Harris who was leading on the Pennsylvania street, but now the picture has completely changed. We're also given to understand that Kamala Harris has cancelled the speech that she was expected to make later tonight. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, we're given to understand by agencies, is going to make an address shortly. But let's also look at some of the other seats, the other key seats. As far as Arizona is concerned, well, again, it is leaning the Trump way with over 50% of the votes going to Donald Trump. Nevada, again, 51.4% of the votes are expected to go to Donald Trump. Wisconsin, which has about 10 electoral votes, is also leaning the Trump way. So most of these battleground states are largely expected to go the Donald Trump away. So that's as far as the latest on the United States election is concerned, but we'll be back with more updates.
Sumita, for that detailed explanation. To understand more about this, let's also welcome in Krishna Memani, the CIO. And firstly, so it seems like Trump will be winning this election. So what does this Trump win mean for US equities, bonds and dollar?
If Trump wins, I think the 2 biggest issues that the US capital markets have to deal with is really one, tariffs and what the implications are of tariffs on US inflation and therefore the bond markets. And the second thing is really about the deficit. And again, what the impact of extending all the tax cuts and doing all sorts of spending, what the impact of that would be on US deficit and therefore the US bond yield.
Okay, so that's the latest coming in. Hi, Krishna, Anisha this side. But do you see any change in the Fed stance given the entire election rhetoric and how Mr. Trump was talking about greater influence when it comes to the US Federal Reserve?
No, I think the path for the Fed, at least in the near term, and by near term I mean 2025, is really more driven by what happens on the growth front and inflation front. And they have already laid out the path in their projections that they have already made, and there really hasn't been any substantial data to kind of take them away from that path. So I expect them to cut this week, and I expect them to cut in December, and I expect them to cut at every meeting in 2025 because they have a lot of headroom. They don't really need inflation to come down substantially. They just need inflation not to go up, and they have enough headroom for them to cut.
So how much of a rate cut are you expecting at least in the next 2 meetings?
Yeah, so the next 2 meetings, I think this week is pretty well ordained, 25 basis points. And I think in December as well, there won't be enough determining data for them not do what they have already said that they are going to do, which is another 25 basis points. So before the year is out, they're probably lowering Fed funds rate by another 50 basis points.
Okay, but Krishna, will the election outcome change anything for India specifically? I mean, any sectors that stand to either lose massively or win disproportionately as a result of Trump victory?
I think the challenge with India relationship with the U.S. Is really not about anything evolving. I don't think anything will materially change with respect to India, irrespective of whether Trump wins or Harris wins. I think the relationship is really going to be relatively steady. I think the path for India is really going to be determined by what happens in India far more than what happens in the US.
Okay, when it comes to the Indian market, we have been seeing a massive FII sell-off. Do you see that reversing anytime soon, given that valuations now look reasonable, at least when it comes to the large cap?
Reasonable is an open question because India was very expensive. It got even more expensive and it has gotten slightly less expensive, but it is still the most expensive market in the world. So I think divining the path of Indian equities based on valuation is a lost cause. I don't think that's really the driver. The driver is the sentiment and the growth path. And I think as long as the growth path is decent and as long as the sentiment is it doesn't get crushed because of an 8% correction in October, I think everything will be okay. But I think those are the determining factors rather than valuations. Valuations have been rich in Indian markets for a long period of time, and it has only climbed. So I think focusing on that is really not something that will be very helpful.
Okay, so that's the latest coming in. But your view on the Indian markets for the next 1 year post this election, what do you think is the way forward? Because we have corrected quite a bit in the last 4 to 5 weeks. Do you think we have seen the worst of correction already, or could there be a further sideways move for the next few months?
I think Indian markets are in a good place. If you look at the growth path, if you look at policy path, if you look at flows from a domestic financialization standpoint, I think all of them are kind of pointing in the right direction. That is, the rally in the market may not be of the same magnitude that we have seen over the last few years, but there's really no reason to doubt the future path for Indian equities as long as there are no surprises. And with the election out of the way, U.S. election out of the way, and the economy holding up reasonably well, even if you see a modest amount of slowdown, I think Indian markets can plow ahead reasonably well. Whether that happens in November or December or in this year or next year is debatable. But at the end of the day, from a longer term perspective, things are actually reasonably good.
And lastly, sir, before we let you go, any stocks or sectors that you have recently invested amid the fall that you have seen in the markets?
Our focus in India is with respect to Indian growth. So what that means is we want to invest in sectors where we think there's a significant amount of potential growth. So it's consumption driven. So it's healthcare, it's a little bit of financials, it's a little bit of tech sector because of new investments that can be made. So it's really, for a foreign investor, if you are investing in India, you're not investing in Hindustan Lever because it's going to sell more surf. You are investing in a new healthcare insurance provider that can grow exponentially. So that's how we think about it, and that's what has been our focus.
Okay, Mr. Memani, on that note, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for making time and speaking with us. It's a fairly important day for you right there. And of course, the live updates coming in with Trump now winning Pennsylvania as well very firmly. That's the latest which is coming in. He's likely to speak very shortly. The live visuals up for you on the screen. We'll stay connected and keep an eye out on that one. But
if you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.